Hello, everyone. It is another episode of Money Honeys with Freddie,
Chantel,
and Devin.
You know the drill. We're just trying to secure the bag, enjoy the bags that we've secured, and, pass down those bags to create generational bags, I guess the proper term is generational wealth.
Yeah, generational bags is better.
is way better. Generational bags.
Like less emotional bags and more generational bags.
Generational
A trade.
bags.
It's a swap.
Yeah,
A little
that's what I
swap.
was. Please and thank you.
Yes, well, that is right. We're actually today going to be diving into something that I feel like a lot of people tiptoe around, which is how can we make sure that our assets and everything we've worked so hard for are protected and are going to the right places once we are no longer here. Yes, we are talking about living trusts and wills today, ladies.
I've been needing this episode.
Ooh.
I haven't even thought about this before in my life.
I'm like, since I have some assets, I'm like, I know I need a living trust, but I don't know really what it is. I don't know how to get one, and I don't know where to start. It's confusing.
It is.
Well, you're in the right place, ladies. We're going to learn today. But before we jump into that, how have your weeks been going? What's happening? How are we feeling this week?
Oh, man. Well, I just started a new job.
Yes.
Hey.
Yeah, I have a new job. I'll talk about it later, I think, and talk more about what I do. But it's a full-time job with a salaried position. And let me tell y'all something. Because I hopped into my new job and then immediately started hiring because we were building out a team, right? And I had thoughts and feelings about accepting a full-time job after being freelance for 2-ish years. A lot of I don't know if I want to do full-time anymore, blah, blah, blah. Like, talk to me about your in-office policy, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, wow, I get it. Even though the trade-in is getting paid religiously and the same number every 2 weeks, people are like, I don't know if I want to get in bed with an industry, with a company anymore.
Yeah.
So it was interesting. And I judged myself for having these feelings of PTSD for getting in bed with a full-time job and position. But it's also validating that the people I'm interviewing are having the same thoughts and feelings.
Yeah.
So a little bit about me.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I think obviously a lot of it has to do with the past 2 years and what we've been going through just globally. I think it has made people think twice about okay, now what are you guys going to require out of me?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When I may not have the best mental health day or when, you know what I mean? It's just kind of, I think people are wanting more of that flexibility that we've had. And the idea of working full time, I think for some is a little scary.
Right.
Yeah. Definitely is for me.
Yeah.
Because also full-time changed over the pandemic when we started working from home. And I saw this because I was in full-time position at NBC when the pandemic started. And then there was this weird 6 weeks where we didn't know our work hours. I was getting messages from my boss at 12:30 because he was up. And we indulged that because we were all kind of recalibrating as the pandemic was starting. And luckily for me, I kind of got out of that situation and reestablished a new routine. But I think a lot of folks stayed in that situation where they were talking to their bosses on Slack first thing when they got up in the morning and right before they go to sleep. And I think people are just I don't know if I can do that anymore.
Yeah. It's exhausting. It's exhausting.
How about you, Shanti?
I've just been in the throes of wedding planning.
Yes, in the throes.
The throes.
Tell me about it.
We booked our DJ.
Yes.
We have 2.
I was going to say, I recall there being multiple DJs.
We got 2.
Amazing.
2 ladies.
Incredible.
It's going to be great. I'm trying to figure out a wedding outfit.
Oh, don't worry. We're here for you.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm just this shit's so expensive. So I'm we can just go to Aritzia.
Aritzia. Get out.
I'll just put something together.
It was funny because you don't have a maid of honor or any bridesmaids, but
no.
The person who is kind of your maid of honor,
who's
kind of assuming that role.
Shout out to Julie.
Hi, Julie. She emailed us this week and was like, "Okay, so here are the plans. You can come to whichever."
Yeah.
I'm coming to all of it.
I was I don't want anyone to feel obligated, especially for because the dress shopping portion, really is for like Julie and my mom. They're both like, well, we want it. And I was like, okay, I won't order something online then. But I was like, I might end up doing that anyways.
You're absolutely
You
not going to do
You
that.
just want to have the experience of walking into a place.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited.
So I was like, all right, I'll do it.
Are you already over budget? With what?
You know, the budget is, as George would say, a living organism.
It's fluid.
It's a living, breathing document.
Yes. So the budget.
Oh, no.
I mean, it's like my budget. I'm just kind of. I'm a little bit more like, okay, as we book stuff and get it solidified, then it's easier to kind of like, all right, so let's not go for like the most expensive option on this, or let's see if we can negotiate with like the bartender.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see what we can, for apps. Can we just like do our own situation?
Yeah.
That's going to be really good. But like, can we just do our own situation versus like a catering company where they're like, that'll be $12,000. And I'm like, absolutely
For
not.
chips and salsa? Ma'am. Ma'am. You're just going to put out a little tortilla tostito kind of thing? That's not $12,000.
Chips and salsa is a really good idea.
It's the best snack. I will die on this hill.
It's my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
It's my favorite snack in the world. Anyways. So yeah, that's been my stuff. What about you, Fred?
Yeah, Fred's, what's going on?
So it's been a pretty chill week. I will say this week, something that got me excited was getting that email alert from Redfin, because that's where I found my house from. And, once you actually buy, and I didn't work through the site, but I guess somehow they know that I bought the house.
Yeah.
They've been listening.
Yeah. And so they told me just about like how much the value has increased just since I purchased the home in September. And I got really excited and was actually a little shocked and surprised by just like the rate at which it appreciates. I mean, it's gone up about $30,000.
Mm-hmm. And you've put a lot of work into it in modernizing it. And so that's not even the factor, because they don't even know about your remodels.
Yeah. So I definitely, like, that was something that almost made something click immediately in my head. And I was like,
yeah. It sounded like that.
Yes,
It worked. Wow.
Wow. Right on time.
Yes.
I was like, wow, like I really do have, like, this is an asset. Like, this is something that I want to make sure remains and stays in my family if I, like, we're no longer here. And, then I started going down this wormhole of, like, wills and all these things. And I started talking. You guys know AT. Our good
AT.
friend Alexis Tirado actually is in the estate planning process right now, just to, take measures to make sure that everything is protected. And she was telling me, she was like, did you know that, like, in California, like, a will isn't enough?
What? What do I have to do now? Come on.
It's always something.
It's always something.
I'm like, what do you mean a will isn't enough?
Being in your 30s is like, oh, I'm still cute, I'm still baby. And then you realize you're not still baby, and there's all these things that you have to do. And you're like, oh, I don't want to do that.
Yes.
I was on TikTok the other day, and they were like, did you know there's this vent behind your stove that you have to clean? I was like, no, stop finding things for me to clean. I sign off. I'm done. I'm going to sleep. Like, I don't want to know about anything more responsibilities. I'm done.
I just want to watch my shows.
Yeah.
I want to watch my shows, play my new little drums, play my piano.
And yeah, we have yet another thing to tackle, and it's not easy.
No.
It's not easy. So find out what I mean after the break. And we are back with headphones now because our guest will be joining us soon. But before we jump into that, I just want to get like a quick gauge of the situation. Personally, I haven't put any thought into my will or any kind of living trust situation. I guess it's something that I thought that I would tackle, like, honestly, like when I have kids, like to have, someone to pass things down to. Did you guys have like a certain age that you were planning on sitting down and even tackling, like figuring out who gets what when you pass? Like, Chantel, you seem like you would have a running doc of like all your assets, who gets what, like.
Yeah, I mean, my timeline for this was like 5 years ago, basically, and I have yet to do it because I know it's like once you have assets, and that's when you should kind of like be doing like a living trust and stuff like that, and like a will, so that like the condo doesn't go into probate, all that stuff. But I haven't done that, and it's one of those things that I'm like, my understanding of it is, I would say 10 out of 100.
Okay.
And it needs to be more. And I'm like, I don't know how to find more knowledge about it because it's like everything that I looked up online, it's like very complicated. And like, I feel like few people, aside from honestly probably like attorneys, actually 100% understand what it is.
Yeah.
And so I've like tried to ask different like quote unquote adults. And they're like, well, it's like this, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, oh, you don't know either.
They don't really know.
No.
You don't know either. And so of course me as a 26-year-old was unable to understand it or even know how necessary it was. And then now as a 30-year-old, I'm like, oh, I need that shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you, Dev?
Well, I recently just gave my boyfriend, Patrick, we know him, we love him. I just gave him a list of all my internet passwords. So I feel like I'm on my way.
You're on your
You know what I mean? Like
Same thing.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah.
So if I croak, at least he can log into my Instagram. So, you know, I'm there. I'm already thinking about it.
Got it.
Yeah.
It's I mean, the most important priorities go first.
Wait,
Yeah.
my assets are my cats. And you know what? They're going to go wherever they want to go.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Bones already does. He's an escape artist.
Yeah. My cats, yeah. So, no, I have not thought about this at all. And I'm a little scared. My sphincter is a little clenched going into this conversation. I really don't know what to expect because we're talking about death. We're talking about paperwork.
Yeah.
And we're talking about, like, it seems, my understanding is, like, once you die, the government, companies all come in and try to swoop up the things that you want or that you have. So that's stressful, too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, okay, when I tell you guys that when Alexis told me that, like, based on, and it's state by state, but we all live in California, and California laws pretty much, you know, let us know that, like, a will upon death, your assets and everything that you've worked super hard to accumulate your entire life can just end up
Where?
with the state.
No.
Yeah, just with the state. And that is just like it made me very stressed out, to be honest. I mean, tax time comes around every year. I get angry because I know it's not going where it needs to be going
Right now.
You know what I mean? So then the idea of the government seizing these things that I work super hard for just cause, you know what I mean? And when you and like just, you know, in my head I was like, oh yeah, I will. Sure. Like there should be a way
Right.
that I can just, you know, pass all my assets on to my parents or other family members, but like you need a living trust. So we have an estate planner in the building via Zoom, but I just like the term in the building.
She's in the building.
Who's going to help us figure out the best way to protect our assets when our time is up. We have Christina Aghajanian. She is an attorney who focuses on estate planning, trust administration, and probate. Hey, Christina.
Hello.
Hi, ladies.
Hi.
Thank you for having me on.
Thank
Nice
you.
to meet you all.
You too.
Thank you so much for coming to our show. So, okay, let's, I guess, jump right into it. Can you tell us a little bit about how you even got into estate planning and what is estate planning, first of all?
Oddly enough, my very first job in high school was at an estate planning law firm. I just was an admin assistant there, and I found this area of practice to be really interesting, you know, learning about how wealth transfers to people, and when you pass away, you know, who gets that land, who gets the painting, everything isn't done the way the Gilmore Girls tell us they're done. So essentially, I thought it was really interesting. I dove deeper into it in law school, and, I'm a California attorney. I've been practicing estate planning for about 7 years. And although it's not a fun topic for anyone to really discuss, it's definitely important for people to learn about it, at least, so that you can avoid your assets going to the wrong people.
Mm-hmm. Come on, experience. You've been doing this since high school. Yes. I love that.
Yeah.
Right. I'm loving this.
I've been in this field for a little while.
Let's jump into it. Can you explain the difference between a will and a living trust? I think the two can be convoluted to someone who may not be actively in the estate process. I didn't even know that there was a difference. I thought that was a nickname for the other. I thought estate planning is just like a code word. For will.
I get it. I totally get it. Yeah, no, definitely. So let me start off by telling you a little bit what estate planning is, and then I'll get into the difference of those two documents. So just so you all know, if you live in California, you already have an estate plan, whether you know it or not. The California Probate Code has basically decided where your things are going to go if you pass away without a will or a trust in place. And it's called intestate succession. So the code has decided where things go. So everything from your car, your house, your bank account, your jewelry, whatever you have has already been decided for you.
What?
So that makes up your estate. Those things are your estate, and that's been decided by California. The way we avoid going with California's plan is you prepare a document like a trust or a will to basically say what you want to happen. Yeah, so, let's talk a little bit about what a trust is. So I want you to think about a trust like it's a basket, okay? Imagine a basket, you're putting all of your things into this basket, and essentially you're protecting them from probate. PS.
What is probate?
I want you to, exactly, I should tell you what that is. So probate is when a judge has to oversee the distribution of your assets. So really, they're still going to look at what you have and where it goes and decide for you. So the trust is how we avoid that, okay? When you pass away with a trust, the administration of your estate is privately done. That means the court doesn't get involved at all. The assets you put in that basket will be distributed to the named beneficiaries in your trust. So really, you decide who gets what. You also decide who's in charge of your estate when you pass away. Okay.
I don't like the idea of California coming in. I don't like the idea of California coming in and telling me what to do with my stuff.
Yeah.
Because what has the state done for me?
Yeah.
I don't.
It shouldn't be up to the state. Yeah.
All right.
So
sorry.
The difference.
Keep going.
No, you're fine. The difference between that and a will is really a document best used when someone doesn't really have any real estate or any intention of purchasing real estate in the future, or their assets are worth below the probate threshold, which is $166,250. So basically, if you're using a will, the court is still going to get involved in the distribution of your assets. And the main difference between these two documents is that a will is only used when you pass away, whereas a trust is used if you're incapacitated, meaning you can't handle your financial affairs anymore, or upon your passing. Okay? So they have different ways of being used.
So you know that one movie on Netflix that was like about what's her face taking advantage of old people?
Oh, yes.
Not thank you for
Sorry,
leaving.
I don't care or something.
Something like that.
I care a lot.
I care a lot. So does that happen to folks who don't have estates set up already?
I can tell you there are a lot of bad people out there who take advantage of some naive or incapacitated individuals. It's, of course, awful and absolutely should not be done. But things happen, in our state, there's something called undue influence, where if somebody is forcing you to do something, they're unduly influencing you. So if they're forcing you to name them as a beneficiary, or you're being manipulated somehow those are grounds for litigation in the future. Family members might feel like a caregiver is taking advantage of their grandma or mom. But things like that happen. And we do have some laws in place to protect against that. But for the most part, a movie's a movie, but things do happen.
But if you have an estate planned out, that can't happen to you. No one can come in because it's already been mapped out, right? Am I understanding?
Well, your estate plan can be modified. So if you have a revocable document, it can be modified over time. And if that does happen, if somebody tries to get themselves named as the trustee on your trust or as a beneficiary, if it's a revocable document and you have capacity, it's possible that your documents may get updated and change what the previous distribution said.
Oh no.
Can you like lock some parts off to where it's like, okay, this stuff can change. Like say I bought another house or another car and didn't get a chance to add it. But so it's like, okay, yeah, you can change that stuff, but I want to lock off the beneficiaries, or I want to lock off who can control my estate.
So really, as long as you have capacity, you're in charge of that document. You are the one who decides, and you're the one who has to sign the amendment or the restatement of your document. So as long as you have the ability to not make changes or make changes as you choose, somebody else should not be able to come manipulate you, right? And change things. Essentially, the plan that you put in place is locked unless you change it. So I want you to think of it like that. Your beneficiaries will be your beneficiaries unless you change it. Okay. So that's basically how it looks.
Okay, so you would say that the candidates for people, I would say candidates for living trusts are if you have, a decent amount of assets. And then you would say the candidates for wills would be maybe someone who doesn't have as many, or someone who doesn't have plans on purchasing a home and things like that.
It really depends. So a common misconception people have is that, trusts are only for, quote, rich people. That's not really the case. If you own a home, if you have children, or you have assets above that probate threshold, if you have pets that you're like, these pets have to go to these people, a trust is a better idea than a will, because in California, the difference in cost of creating a trust versus probating your estate is substantial. And having a will may not cover what happens in the future. You may create a will today because you don't have real estate, but next year you buy a house. Well, that will is not going to take care of the house and keep it out of the court system. So you do that is using a trust. So, as soon as you buy that house, as soon as you have those kids, you should get a trust put in place, but it just makes sense to have the trust, have that basket ready. And when you have stuff to put in it, put it in there. And that's it.
You get to add it in a little add-on. Yeah. A little essential oil add-on.
Yeah, it's a little add-on there. It's a big difference. The probate court has a fee structure. So that's set by the court. It's not up to us as attorneys. I don't decide how much I'm being paid for your estate if you pass away. So an example of the cost of probate is, on $1 million estate, let's say you have real property worth $1 million, or all of your assets accumulated are come up to $1 million. You're looking at about $23,000 in executor fees. Executor fees are the fees paid to the person who's administering your estate. $23,000 going to attorney fees and additional court fees. So that's $46,000 that are basically just being thrown away. That could have gone to the beneficiaries.
Does that come out of? That comes out
your
of
estate.
The pool, yeah.
Oh my!
Yeah.
So we hate probate.
If they have to sell that house, if they have to sell that house to pay for that stuff, then that's what needs to happen. Because a lot of times people will inherit things that maybe still have a mortgage on it. Maybe they're not completely paid off, or that's where they live. Maybe a child inherits something and they live there, and they can't afford to pay $46,000 to somebody just out of pocket. So, it's not a great way to have your assets transferred to people. And the process can take up to 2 years in California. The court's so backed up.
I hate it here.
But yeah.
Yeah, I'm pissed.
So living trust can also just protect your family members or your loved ones after you pass, so that they don't have to go into like financial hardship to take on your assets. And then it's like, if they want to sell the house or if they want to sell a car, they can do that, but they're not doing it to pay for your fees, basically.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's basically preparing things and having things ready just in case. And it does, when someone passes away, there's such a grieving time going on already. The burden of taking on loans and trying to figure out how to cover the cost of these things, because like I said, the attorney doesn't decide when it comes to probate. It's set by code. So, it's not like I can say, okay, give me $15, and I'll take care of this for you. It's up to the court system.
We hate probate.
Yeah.
We hate
Yeah,
probate.
we don't like probate.
This is making me like want to go home and immediately take care of this stuff.
Yeah.
Immediately call me.
Yeah. Exactly,
Yes.
Christina. Exactly.
Yes.
Christina, have you seen any cases where someone thought a will would protect everything they've earned in their lifetime and that wasn't the case? And like, what exactly happened? We've kind of touched on this, but do you have any personal like anecdotes of this experience?
Right. Unfortunately, because I practice probate as well, I have seen many cases like this. So, oftentimes clients will come about that, they're the child of someone who passed away, and maybe they're the quote good child who's been, talking to mom, taking care of mom for many, many years. Mom lived in their house after dad passed away, and the other kids basically have washed their hands of mom. Haven't seen her in 20 years, haven't been involved at all. And ultimately, according to the probate code, all of the kids are beneficiaries in equal shares. So that kid who's done everything for mom and is still taking care of, the probate is ultimately, getting less than maybe they deserved, or maybe less than what mom would have wanted them to get.
Yeah.
And that's not the case with everybody, right? It may be, I love all my kids equally and that's fine. This is just the one that happened to take care of me. But, there are many times where that's not what they would have wanted.
Yeah.
And when the court's getting involved and supervising the distribution of the estate, when you have these family dynamics, maybe there weren't good relationships, again, because of the probate code, the hard-earned money, the estate that lady had, ultimately is going to be split up amongst family members that maybe she didn't want to receive anything. So yeah, this can happen. This happens pretty often, actually. And it's not just with a kid. It might be, mom promised me this house. I've been paying the mortgage on the house she lives in for all these years. She told me I could have it once she passes. And again, it's split between like 2 kids. And they lose out on everything they put into that house.
And there's like literally nothing, like you can't even, there's nothing you can do. There's at that point, there's literally nothing you can't like argue in court, like, well, I've been here for 10 years. Like you can't.
You just hope that your sibling
will
is good
recognize.
too.
Yeah.
And is like, well, this, if it's like, oh, this is what our parent would have wanted or something. But I feel like that's hard to come by.
It's rare, I feel like.
Right. And that's, it gets a little complicated. I don't want to make it too confusing for your listeners, but when you have a situation where perhaps, there's 2 kids who inherit and they have a good relationship with each other, and maybe, we knew that daughter was the one who was paying the mortgage, and son says, you know what, I'll give you the half that I'm going to get, even through the probate court. I'll give you my half. That child can do that, but then there's a reassessment on the property taxes of the home. The transfer between siblings doesn't qualify for an exclusion from property taxes being reassessed. There's so much, so much more that goes into it, and doing the appropriate planning beforehand will avoid all of this.
Right. Okay. That actually brings me to a really good question that I just thought of, because I had a maybe understanding of it, but I want to make sure that I'm actually correct. So say I have a house in my living trust, and then that gets passed down to my child. All goes well. There's no complications there. But then the house doesn't get reassessed. So like the property taxes stay the same for my child versus it getting its new value, and then property taxes and everything going up. Is that correct or incorrect?
It is correct, however, with a caveat. So, Prop 19 was passed this past year, and it essentially says that if the child uses that home as their primary residence, again, I'm only speaking to California law here, if they use it as their primary residence, then there will not be a reassessment. However, if they do not treat it as a primary residence and they prefer to treat it as a rental, then there is a possibility of reassessment. So prior to Prop 19 being passed, we had that benefit of not having the reassessment. So as my clients would inherit things from their family members, they were able to hang on to them, use them to generate rental income because the property taxes were so low, house was paid off, it was great. But, some things have changed.
Why did they do that, if you don't mind me asking?
You can ask the realtors about that one. A lot of agents, from what I understand, were really rallying for this to happen. And of course, other professionals wanted this to happen because of the fact that people were inheriting property at such low property taxes. They were hanging on to it. So these properties weren't getting freed up to be sold or to keep, freeing up real estate in California. So they pushed for this thing of, well, when you inherit it, if you can't afford the property taxes, sell it. So now we have freed up some more inventory.
So that we can jack up the prices for the new tenants.
Yeah. And this was a thing we all voted on, right? This was like on our California ballots.
Correct. It was voted on. And unfortunately it passed. So we don't know, how long it'll last for, and when we can hopefully vote to change it back. But
let's repeal that. How do we repeal? Let's repeal it. Now that we understand what it is, we're like,
yeah,
that's the thing. A lot of these things are not explained well, and so people feel like, oh, that's what they're saying on the ad, so that must be it. But there's a lot of other things that happen, as a result, consequences.
Yeah.
So for our listeners, what other states require living trusts versus a will?
Yeah, so because I'm a California attorney, I can't speak to what other states require, a will over a trust over a will to avoid court involvement. But there are many states that do require a trust, like California does, to avoid court involvement. I know in New York, I have a colleague in New York who's told me the probate process is a bit faster there. So, it really varies from court to court, state to state. Here in California, because we have such a large population, a lot of our courts closed down and were consolidated to our downtown court, Stanley Mosque. So the probate court there is just so backed up that it's taking a long time. But every state is different.
Yeah.
Fun and cool and fun.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I have a moral question. So say I'm like, okay, I now very much want to get into my estate planning. How do you even I've never really worked with attorneys before. How do you kind of screen an attorney to make sure that they have your best interest at heart? Because it seems like such a huge decision so that your loved ones are taken care of, and you're saving them of that emotional distress, the added distress of finances once you pass. How do you screen an attorney to make sure that they're really caring about all that for you?
Right. Yeah, that's a great question. I agree. You want to have a good relationship with the estate planning attorney. You want to have a good feeling. You want to feel like they will be your advocate and help guide your trustee with doing what they need to do. But in any case, I think the most helpful thing to ask is if that attorney specializes in this area of law. Just like you go to a dermatologist for a skin issue, you're not going to go to the dermatologist and say, I have a heart condition. Can you tell me what's going on? Right. So I've had many clients come to me to redraft or, fix mistakes made by like a bankruptcy attorney or a business attorney or someone who should not be doing this area of law because they do something else, right? So just find out if they specialize in the area of law. It will make a big difference in the quality of your documents. You may also want to ask about the cost to update your documents over time and what that would look like. For example, our office follows up with our clients every 3 years just to check in. We want to make sure things haven't changed. If they have, we can talk about it and see if it may warrant an update, or, hey, we thought about that when we talked that last time, so we don't need to update your documents. You're good. I'll talk to you in 3 years again. So, it really depends on how their style of working is and keeping their relationship with the client. But I think it's important for you to feel comfortable that you can talk to them if you have questions. That's really important.
Sure. So how much does it actually cost to drop a will versus drawing up a living trust?
Yeah, so the cost really depends on the size of the estate, the type of planning that needs to be done. I can't give you a number because it will depend on many factors.
Right.
Things like things that come up during the consultation, like discussing tax consequences, planning for minor children, planning for a business, intellectual property you may have. It really depends. I have, our clients, we have a lot of entertainment clients, and depending on what we need to focus on, that will drive the type of planning I do. And, we want to make sure that their intellectual property, continues to create royalties for their families, and things like that. So it depends on how complicated it gets. And you may not think your estate is complicated, but once we start talking, there might be things that you're like, oh, I didn't even think about that. I didn't even realize that I could do this, or my IRA will do that. There are things that come up during the consultation and during the planning process. So yeah.
If you are married, do you and your spouse need to have individual living trusts, or if you're both okay with it being combined, is that something that can happen?
Absolutely. So it really, again, will depend on the assets. So is there a prenup? If there is, we need to review that. Are there assets jointly held, or are most of them separate? Does wife have 3 or 4 condos in her name and husband has a house in his name and they want to keep things separate for some reason? That's fine. They could do 2 separate plans. But if, for the most part, because we are a community property state, if for the most part they consider everything joint, they're both on title, or one of them gets added on title on a property, they can have a joint trust. Absolutely. That would be the most, I would say, for married couples, that's the most common, is to do a joint trust.
Is there like a little discount if it's like, we're gonna both do this one? And
it costs less to do a joint plan.
There we go.
There we go.
It's only one. It's only one trust than doing 2 separate ones.
We love a quasi coupon code.
We do.
A BOGO moment.
A BOGO, if you will.
I love it. Yeah.
You will. Wow. I am just like over here. My brain is just almost about to explode. Like, this is a lot to wrap my head around, especially because it's not something that I think any of us really, have been actively planning on getting done. I mean, we've, it's been in the background of our heads, for a while, but I think like this is definitely, it's making me want to, put my foot on the gas a little bit.
Yeah, this has been so informative for me.
Well, we joke a lot about on this podcast about how we have to protect our money from Uncle Scam.
Mm-hmm.
But Uncle Scam is coming for your money even when you die, even after death.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it is this country is a lot.
And listen, I would be fine with giving my money to California when I die if I knew that California was doing something with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't know.
No.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah. I don't have any other questions.
No,
Do you
I have
guys
to go
any
think
other
and meditate.
questions?
Yeah, I've been so informed. I feel
Yeah.
like I feel like I know 10,000 times more now than when
Yeah.
I walked in.
Absolutely. Like, yes, Christina, thank you so
Thank you.
much. Thank you so much for
Yes.
being with us and
Absolutely.
educating us on how not to get screwed
Mhm.
posthumously.
Mhm.
Like it's very important, and I think it's really important to put some thought into that to make sure that your loved ones or whoever is the least stressed out as
Yeah.
possible.
Yeah.
Where can the people find you, Christina?
Oh, yeah. Well, thank you, ladies, so much for having me on. It's been a pleasure talking to you. I hope I didn't scare anybody.
No.
Estate planning should not be scary. I know nobody wants to talk about this stuff, but, we try to make it as simple as possible and essentially, make it something that you're just going to do once and put away and not think about it anymore. But, for anyone in California who has questions about their own estate plan, they can find me at Link Law Inc. or on Instagram, Yelp, and on linklaw.com. And, we're proud to be an entirely female law firm. We're located
there we go.
Yes.
Yeah. We're located in Glendale, California, but we help clients all over California. I have clients in NorCal and Southern California. So, if anyone has questions, always feel free to reach out.
Thank you,
Oh,
Christina.
amazing.
Thank you so much. And maybe we'll have you back on. I think there's probably still going to be some lingering
I'd
questions.
love to come back.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. So
Oh,
thank
yeah.
you so much.
Yes,
you.
this has been so great.
Y'all, I'm dead, actually. From all this information, I'm actually deceased. I had no idea it was a thing, and I'm going to need to go home and meditate about my options.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, like I do feel so much more empowered now that I understand what it is.
Yeah.
Because even with my partner's dad very unexpectedly and quickly passed, and he had all of this stuff in order. And so it was like, go to like top drawer of the dresser. That's where the living trust is. Here's where the will is. Here's like the attorney to call to like enact it and all that stuff. And so he was like the absolute most prepared. And it was still so emotionally taxing that I cannot imagine having to go through that as a family without having these documents. Like it would have been like just absolutely excruciating.
Yeah.
Like crazy, you know.
Yeah.
It was already like the most painful thing.
Yeah.
But if we had to think about all this stuff, I truly cannot even imagine.
Crazy making.
Yeah.
Cannot even imagine.
Yeah.
So I'm so pro living trust, especially now that I know what it is.
Yes, absolutely.
After we finish this podcast, call your parents or call a lawyer. Like, that's all.
Yeah.
Make sure you and all your loved ones have this stuff enacted. Living trust if
Yes.
they need it, will if they need it, living trust and will if they need it.
Yes,
All of it.
absolutely. Until next week.
See you then.
See you then.
See you then.